Hey everybody, it's Robert Dunt from ArtTop10.com, and I'm very excited this afternoon to be chatting with Sharon Beavan. Hello, Sharon.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Robert.
So, it's another mad hot day, although I think you say it's about to pour with rain where you are. But
I think it is. In Devon, we seem to have missed the searing heat of the southeast.
But well, before the downpour takes over, I think probably why not tell me about that amazing painting behind you to start with.
Okay, right, that's a good place to start. Feel free to interrupt at any point, by the way, because once I'm off, I'll never stop.
No worries.
Okay, but this could be a good point to share the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a couple of paintings that I wished I'd done but hadn't, and they are they're very pivotal to this painting behind me.
Okay.
So one is this. I don't know how good it will be on screen because so that's obviously Bathers by George Seurat.
Absolutely, it's a stunning painting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in a very pretentious way. I would say that my painting is a sort of a homage to that.
Okay.
You know, sometimes I can't bear pretentiousness, and then other times I think, why not?
Why not? And why? Oh, here we go. And this is the other one.
Yes, this is Good and Bad Government by Ambrogio Lorenzetti.
Oh wow!
So which is in Siena. It's actually a fresco.
Okay.
So they're the two paintings really that the sort of form the visual language of this piece. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you some of the paintings that I was doing that you could say the Lorenzetti and the Seurat were almost like the catalyst for capturing these next 1, 2, 3, 5 paintings. Okay. So I'll just be very quick with them.
Yeah, no, take your time. It's cool.
Okay. So this was a painting I did. I'm very sorry that it's so badly presented. It only occurred to me to show it to you this morning.
No, it's really cool.
And it was it actually was a slide that I had turned into a digital image.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
It was 3 by 4 foot, and it was about the hurricane in 1987.
Okay.
And I was desperately trying to find a way to develop my own approach, explore my own strengths and my own excitements, really, for painting. I felt after being at Royal College, which I was there from 1981 to 1984, I felt that it was a bit like having a 3-year course of character assassination.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it really wasn't. I was very lucky. I always appreciate the fact that I had a full grant for 3 years.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You know, I gained enormously from it, but it was like an assault course.
Yeah.
So, and I came out believing I could do nothing. And
really,
it was a very, very negative experience for me.
So
anyway,
what were they just were they critical, or were they just sort of?
I just think I was just invisible. Actually, it didn't even get to be as interesting as critical. I think I was just the space filler, and I know that isn't true because at the time of giving out grants to people, and it was a very competitive place to get into.
Yeah.
But I was like a fish out of water there, really. And whereas when I did my BA, I made a lot of friends with people that I'm still friends with now.
Okay. At
the Royal College, I was really gobsmacked at how competitive it was.
Oh, was it?
I just gone there in a sort of like a naive expectation that I was going to go there and to get better, and it was going to be really I was really going to grow.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was the right place for me. And in the 3rd year, I was pretty much told that. But, you find your own way, don't you? And I'm very, very grateful for the fact that I went, and I totally appreciate the experience of having been there. Okay, so this little run of paintings here.
So these are really cool. So you've got like sort of crazy side views and downward views, and like you're seeing it from all different angles.
Yeah. Well, what I was trying to do was I was trying to find a way of working that I felt motivated by.
Okay.
I'd always had that sort of streak in me that was a bit of a sort of, you know, the puritanical Slavian. Not that I ever went to the slave. I can add that proudly to another list of projections. So I always sort of wanted to fight against that, and I really needed to find something, as I say, that I could identify with and felt that I could do. So I used to walk around where I lived, which was Islington. I walked around there endlessly doing little drawings and then putting them back together. And so I was interested in the physical effects of you moving through space, you know, optically and physically. Having said that, this one was a bit different, but this was opposite the flat I used to have.
That's really cool.
So I don't know what happened to this painting. It went to the Leicestershire collection for schools and colleges, I believe, and then they sold their collection off. So I tried to locate it. It disappeared. So anyway, then all of these paintings culminated this. So this is in the collection at the Guildhall, the Guildhall Art Gallery, and or the art collection. And actually, it was on show, I believe, just last autumn in a show there about the architecture of London.
It's really cool because it looks like the little cars are driving along the bottom, and then they're going whisked up into the sort of through the space.
Yeah, I was really all these overused words: excited, motivated, intrigued, impassioned, whatever. I was very excited by all of the movement, really, and the structure, collapsing structures, emerging structures, just a sense of movement, not like London is now. I don't mean COVID London. I mean just slightly before COVID London. At that point in the 80s, it was sort of, I don't know, it was sort of like the arse end of everything being really pressing, but something new coming out of it. So there was just a nice balance of old and new, decay and newness. But I didn't realise at that point what a hellhole it was all about to turn into.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be fascinating because the painting of yours just there, it's quite frenetic, and the bathers has got a terribly sort of controlled calmness to it in a way. How do they relate in your mind? How do those two relate to each other?
Well, the reason, if I can have a pretentious moment and say that my painting is a homage to the bathers. George Seurat is, a man of his time. So that painting references lots of different things. Not least for 14th century painting, but innovations within the chemical industries, the Industrial Revolution, and the innovation of different colours and dyes, etc. I don't want to talk like a fake art historian because I'm not brilliant on any of that, but that's well documented, And in the way that Seurat was, forging something with the permanent and the static nature of the 14th century within that vision, even though in the background, it's documented that the background is about, the onset of change once more. As much as I think that staticness is actually to do with the integrity of painting, as I would see it.
Okay.
I don't expect anyone else to share that view, but that's how I see it. So that, you know, you might use the River Thames and you might use the River Seine, but, you know, the image is a loaded thing, but at the end of the day, the image is a coat hanger. It's a coat hanger for an inquiry. So although I see that, you know, Seurat forges his vision out of a desire to create permanence and a link to 14th century painting, I think I started this painting in about 1990. And as I was saying, you know, it was a very turbulent time. I mean, you could say it looks sort of quite tranquil in comparison to now, but it wasn't really. You know, there were similar concerns and upheavals that made you feel like you were walking around with, you know, the nuclear bomb about to drop or whatever. So, although I would still want to, you know, aim for an image that had a real permanence about it, I'm not saying I'm achieving it, but you know, I am very interested in that idea of the way that painting travels in terms of time. So I would love to be able to create an image of, you know, contemplation and calm forged out of the, you know, the dog ends of the 20th century. But that isn't, that wouldn't be true to what it feels like to be alive then and now. And because I think turbulence and being overwhelmed is very much the, what would you say, the sort of the signature of those, of our times.
It's really interesting, actually, because I actually went to the National Gallery last weekend and saw the bathers, and it's really interesting. But as you say, it's not about that bit of the Seine. You're saying he's trying to paint this sense of permanence or monumentality of the figures. Is that? And
it's a state. You know, it's like for me, it's like a state of being. So it's not. You know, I say that as I'm not a religious person. I don't practice any meditation or anything. But it's the idea of those things that remain of permanence with you from the cradle to the grave, really. You know, the world looks different, but there are things that will always remain true, and that's light and space and colour and touch.
And those figures in the bathers actually have quite a monumental sense to them.
They're like sculpture.
Yeah, they are. That's a really good description, actually.
They're solid, you know. I could look at that painting forever if you've got a chance. Every time you go to the National Gallery, you need a telescope to look at it. So many people walking in front of it.
Well, there aren't at the moment.
Right. Every cloud has a silver lining.
Exactly. But and so you were trying to get that same sense in the painting behind you, the one of London.
Well, I'd love to, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I've worked on it. I've worked on it pretty solidly since I started it in 1990. So I have done some other things.
You're still working on it at the moment, are you?
Yeah, I was just doing a tiny little bit on it before I got your email.
that is 30 years you've been doing.
Yeah, God, yeah. But it's oh God, you know, how long have you got? I started painting when I did my foundation course. I did my foundation course for 2 years because I didn't know what day of the week it was when I did my first year on the foundation. You know, these days that would be called BTEC, you know. So I had a lot of ground to make up, and I was extremely lucky. I went to what we all thought, and I still think was, which for that time, 1976, 1979, was the best foundation course in the country. Yeah, maybe everybody thinks their foundation course is the best foundation course in the country, but I think it was commonly knowledge was like right up there, you know.
And,
So I had
where was
a very
where was that?
St Albans.
Oh, St Albans. Okay.
Yeah, St Albans School of Art, and which, you know, then became part of Hertfordshire College of Art and Design.
Okay.
But you won't go there. And don't go happy. So I was taught extremely well in terms of observational drawing. Project briefs didn't exist, by the way. You just turned up, got the model, who happened to be Quentin Chris.
Oh, really?
And you turned up, you got a top quality model, you got top quality observational drawing teaching, and we learned loads about colour. And but then I went to Founders School of Art. I can't actually remember where I'm going with this now. But
just sort of about I guess, you know, your sort of history of painting and what led you to spend so long on the one behind you.
Yes, that's right. So I went to Falmouth, and that was amazing as well for a painter. I don't know about people that were doing working in other areas, but for painting it was amazing. And then I eventually went to the Royal College. I was at the Royal College from 1981 to 84, and it was right in that time where things were changing hugely. And I think the language, the tradition that I'd been taught in was, you know, being held to account, really, because a lot of it was, you know, was very influenced by the slave, I suppose, and Camberwell. I never went.
Yeah.
And I could see why it was being held to account, and I could see how it had become obsolete.
Yeah.
But equally, I found the sort of dialogue about painting in the 1980s. I didn't feel I was part of that dialogue. I didn't know what I was. It was another one of those situations where you know more what you're not than what you are.
So what was the sort of trendy painting in the 1980s?
Well, I suppose if I think back, there was that new, I'll never say it, like the new realism show at the Royal Academy.
Okay.
When I was at the Royal College, there was a lot of work that was about, you know, very influenced by Max Beckman.
Okay.
There was a lot of sort of what I would call soft, rehashed German expressionism.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, then the sort of tidal wave of Brit art and Saatchi.
I'm trying to think. Brit art and Saatchi, when did that really kick off? It was about...
Well, it felt like it was the sort of like 1984, 1985, maybe it was a bit later, but it was obvious that change was in the air, you know.
It must have, I'm trying to think.
A bit later, but...
I'm trying to think, because all I can think about 1984 and 1985 is the Jesus and Mary Chain. I don't know if you remember that. The band, the Jesus and Mary Chain. That's just, I'm obsessed with that. That's my sort of focal history point. But I suppose even in pop music, there was a bit of a shift with everything as well. But it's interesting because I reckon the Saatchi stuff must have been a little bit later, as you say. But maybe there was that thing in the air, like you say, where it was that sort of the realism-y kind of slave thing was running out of energy, as it were.
Yeah, and you sort of felt that, you know, the people that had become part of the new sort of art hierarchy, all those people that we know, you know, like David Hockney and Caulfield, you know, and Peter Blake, they'd all gone, and then it felt like there was that sort of, I know this is a little bit of a potted history, leaving out loads, but it felt like we were in a gap, really. And then it was noticeable that the people that were in the years beneath me at the Royal College, they were like, my God, they were really much sharper than certainly I was, and am, no doubt. And I wasn't really, you know, when you just look at something and you know that it doesn't matter how much you talk to some people or how much you sort of look at their work, you sort of know it's not that it's not for you, because that makes painting sound like it's a meal or you know, it's a lifestyle option. You just don't feel anything. You just feel a hollow about it all.
Well, it's really interesting. It sounds like it was a really hard time to be like an artist. It's quite strange.
I think it was, I never really went to private views. I never was interested in any of that. So, you know, I'm probably, you know, I've just made my own doom in a way, in that wild horses wouldn't have got me to a private view, and to be honest, wouldn't really get me to a private view these days either. But I hated all of that. I hated the way that this thing that I still revere very much, you know, I think to be an artist is an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
You can use the word privilege, you can use whatever word you like. I think it's an incredible thing to be an artist. And to me, that is a very different thing to just, you know, knobbing round a load of private views, and having to talk to people that, one, you don't like, and two, you don't want round your house. You know, and if having to spend your time with people like that, you know, the people that just look right through you until they're always looking for someone better to come in the room. They're always looking for someone that's going to do them a favour to walk in the room. God, no thanks. I felt very much not part of anything. But I think that's it's a tough place to be, but I think it's actually ultimately quite a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, hence when I left the Royal College to go full circle, I knew that if I was going to continue painting, which I still told myself I wanted to do, even though the language, the way people spoke about painting and the way that they made painting seemed to have changed so much.
Yeah.
I thought, well, you know, isn't this just, it's my choice what I do, you know, I didn't, you know, I've never been someone that's ever got a bursary apart from having the grant from, you know, which I, like, devastated that younger generations don't get that.
Exactly.
You know. But I thought, well, you know, I want to try and reconnect with things that I felt impassioned about in painting.
Yeah.
So hence the paintings that you've just seen, the little quick book, 3x4 book paintings. And they sort of culminated in that painting from the Guildhall, that's in the Guildhall now. And I thought, well, hang on, you know, I'm in danger here of becoming, you know, the novelty turn, the person that does the quick paintings of walking around London.
Okay,
And so I decided that, you know, I'd do this one big one, and that I would call it a day after that. I'd sort of reflect on it.
And 30 years later,
see what came out of the hat. Yeah, so I have got some smaller sections of the painting, so I could do two things depending on what you'd like. I can either lift the laptop up once more and take you over the painting, or I could share the screen and then show you some photographs that someone took for me. And they're certainly not as up to date as this, but you might get a better quality of focus.
Let's share the screen. Have a look.
Okay. So this is that's probably just a clearer view of what you're looking at the moment. And it has changed. I don't. If you can see that.
I can see it perfectly.
I'll come to it actually in a minute. I'll show you the bit that's changed a lot. Well, it's all changed a lot.
You can always move your cursor over different bits of it as you talk about it.
Can I do that? Okay, right. Let's do that. So, oh yes, of course. This bit here. That I've probably been on that bit now. Whoa. If I've lived here for 4 years, I've probably been on that bit for about 6 years.
6 years.
And and a similarly long time on the bit where the cursor is now.
Okay.
So
the first bit you pointed at, my eye was drawn to that bit first of all. Actually, it's got it's quite tight. It's quite in a nice way. I mean, it's
it's layers and layers and layers of paint. There's no fillers in it or anything.
Okay.
Because around the year 2000, which in my head just seems like 2 weeks ago, but amazingly 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd finished all of this side.
Okay.
And this was all finished. I'd reworked all of this once, and I'd reworked all of this once as well.
Man.
And I changed the way I drew.
Oh, really?
And I changed the way I drew quite a while before embarking upon these areas here.
Okay.
Because what I was finding was that in order to make the drawings fit my sketch, I just couldn't bear the horror of standing out on the street with a drawing board.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. So I had sketchbooks with me, always the same size A4 sketchbook.
Okay.
And I found that the best way of getting the information that I wanted was to make these very, very measured drawings, which was everything I set out not to do. But as a result of that, I saw that the very intensely measured drawings actually made the painting have a much greater sense of stability and solidity. Really.
Interesting.
So instead of this and this area being much more naively painted, really, I just decided. I thought, well, I could carry on here, and I could finish this.
Yeah.
In 2 or 3 years or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what's the point? Which is sort of part of what this painting has been about. When I was talking about being a foundation and the degree and MA and the climate at that time. The new realism, new realism, and giants of art now. People like Keeper and Clemente, that whole crew.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you can't just make your own work like that, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
I'm not a bloke. I'm not a bloke of a certain age. I'm not a bloke of a certain cultural background and history. It's all, maybe mine is a lot more lightweight, but in my lightweightedness, it has to be true,
Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
I don't think it's lightweight.
oh,
wow, that's amazing.
I mean, we all know what this is. I say rather arrogantly, that's the South Bank.
I didn't realise the whole detail in it.
Yeah, and again, I've got this real perverse thing about being something that is the antithesis of what I am. It's a really weird thing.
Yeah, go on.
In my mind's eye of myself, I'm a much more gestural and much more expressionistic sort of painter in a way.
Yeah.
But I have a real, and therefore I can't help it. I always want to fight against that. And there are a couple of things that I've seen that I really, just for the sheer hell of it, I wanted to sort of explore as a painter.
Oh, wow.
And one was a friend of mine. We went to his dad's shed.
Yeah.
And in his shed, he'd been working on this model train set.
Oh, yeah.
When I say model train set, he was a big bloke and he could sit on it.
Really?
He would drive it around the garden.
Bizarre.
And, Graham Crowley talks in his book about engineering and motorcycles.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in that at all, But I had such a sort of a regard for that, the way a life was spent, in making this, on the face of it, a sort of hobby, friends that a great big bloke could come and sit on. I just thought that was absolutely amazing. And compared to the way that time was spent talking about art with people that I felt spent their time in a way that had such less integrity to it.
Oh man, that's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought.
So the guy who'd spent his time building his train to sit on had more integrity than all those people fancying around chatting about art and being clever.
Yeah, and I wish that wasn't the case because, I would encourage anybody to get an art education. I don't know about an art education as it stands in today's context, but certainly up until a few years ago, art education has received a severe spanking from successive governments, but it's still worth having than not having. So I wouldn't, but being an artist and having an art education is very different to being part of what I think is being the art world and what that requires. Anyway, I'm just taking you across.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Bridge at the moment.
There's little bits of text. There's little bits of text as well.
Yes, they're sort of their memory joggers, really. What I need to. I mean, God knows how long that's been on there. That's been there for about 20 years.
Matt, so will you paint over those texts eventually, or leave them there?
Yeah, I will, and much to everyone's disdain.
Yeah,
I'm very upset that it's going to go. There is a sort of an intermediary drawing, by the way, that is all wrapped up. That was like the plan. Because what I would do, I would go out every day in the way that I did with the paintings I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
And I would, basically what I was using was all the ripped up work that I took home from the Royal College. I had loads and loads of, really crap work, and I ripped a lot of it up, but I used the paper to do drawings on the tobacco.
Oh, nice.
And I did this big drawing, which was the sort of the template for this painting.
Okay.
And I literally started off down here.
Okay.
Now, I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was. That's typical. So, have I left the point hanging in the air there that I was supposed to follow up?
No. It's cool, actually. I hadn't realised. I can now see the bit you've worked on. That's actually a bit of a building, isn't it?
It's a bit here.
Yeah. It's like a side view of the building.
Yeah. So what I wanted to pursue, as in those other paintings, was the way that when you walk around anywhere, but I wanted to take somewhere that was an interesting mix between those very familiar to me, quite universal, as an image, an image of London.
Yeah.
So it was familiar, but it was personal, and it was also very formal. Because the other thing I was, really, architecture and painting have had a really close relationship. If you look at the 14th century in particular, and the relationship of perspective to painting.
Yeah.
And I liked the way that you could walk through this landscape and see the same building several times.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and then as your orientation in the space changed, the presentation of the building was different, and obviously the challenges that presented in terms of what you should be doing or could be doing with your drawing skills was huge to me. So it's a massive thing to take on. Once I decided, I didn't really decide, it was never thought. That once I knew that this brand new artwork that was out there, this brand new art world that I wasn't part of, and once I knew that the conversation there was not going to happen, I thought, well, how liberating is that? Isn't it all about doing it for yourself anyway?
Exactly.
You're not working for a king, you're not working for a pope, you're not working for the local landowner. Being an artist is a responsibility.
That's quite
in my opinion. And so, you know, if I'm working, as I was at the time, I was working in a bookshop. I thought, well, you know, frankly, I can do what I like with my own money,
Yeah, exactly.
and my own thoughts. And so I was, you know, I was aware as I was taking the drawings back to the studio, which, by the way, was also another bedroom. I was aware of all these other things about, you know, the way that the fronts of the building, the facades of the building, sort of, they were a bit like little paintings.
Yeah.
And then they also reminded me of tapestries. And of course, you know, London with the sort of the history that it has of, you know, going back to goodness knows whenever, you know, there's all these sort of flavours of medieval shapes and detail, and then there's, you know, immense areas of rebuilding after the war. So there's like pockets of, well, it's not pockets, there's history everywhere, you know.
You know what? They're really weird. The focus close up bit, they're really vertiginous. I feel.
Yeah.
It's like you're being sucked in and thrown around and pushed back, and then you're being sort of meant to lean backwards and look at things. You're getting constantly shoved around as you look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that was an intention, but if I say it was an intention, it makes it sound like I set out to, you know, I sat down, I wrote a thing that I was going to do, and then I went out and did it. And it wasn't like that, you know. It was, it's like how making artwork, well, used to be. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know that now. You know, it's like you sort of, you have a bit of a sort of sense of something, and you just sort of sniff it out a bit, really. You know. So, you know, this area around here, Covent Garden, going up to Trafalgar Square,
that's really cool, actually.
all around here, you know. At one point, quite a lot of the lower part of the painting was painted like that. No, actually, I'm getting that wrong. When I painted this area here, it showed how the very bottom of the painting, if I quickly go back to this one, all of this was painted much more loosely to start with, and all of it. And when I got up to this area here, I sort of, it created such an imbalance. So again, that was very interesting in terms of the way that I had to address that imbalance through drawing, and what decisions I was making, what approaches I wanted to use when I was drawing. And it obviously changed a huge amount of the future of the painting.
It's
cut that in, because I'll just keep on forever.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's absolutely. Show us the rest of the pictures, and then I'd be curious if you can we see your sketchbooks as well that you were using.
Yes, you can. I'm sort of saying that like, no, you can't. But yes, you can. What I'll do is, before I do that, I'll get some other images up.
Okay.
That I recently had scanned.
Okay.
When I say they're more recent drawings, that means they were done.
Oh, that's cool. 2 years ago. I mean, look at all these little trees. It must have taken ages to do.
It did. It did. I mean, I'll just show you the last image, and then I'll tell you how long one other bit took. This area here, or if I go back to the main one, this area here, just that road, the embankment, that took about 3 years.
Oh man!
And the reason it took me so long is because I'm not quite sure if you'll be able to see it.
Try.
Because what I was doing, I was trying to line up this exact point with the exact point opposite.
Seriously?
And that point here with that point opposite. And that point here with that point opposite. And of course, it really stabilised the painting, but it changed it hugely. So what I'll do then is
Have you ever felt like you might just go completely mad when
Yeah.
you're
Yes, and I learned a lot, in a very sort of right-on contemporary way. I learned a lot about, you learn a lot about yourself. And oh, I don't know if you can see that very well.
Are those your
drawings?
Can you see? Yeah, they're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I'll get another couple of the books. I've got 29 of these books, so I'm sure you don't see all of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are amazingly detailed. I didn't think they'd be so...
Yeah. Well, I'll take you through some of the other ones. Yeah. This is the sketchbook I'm working in at the moment.
Oh my God, I mean, these are like architect drawings, but better, sort of.
That's what I like to think, Robert. No, that's well, there is something about the frankly dark colour nakedness of drawing that I think you've seen that down. That I just really wanted to, in an age of bullshit, I just really wanted to take on something that was there's no fluff in it. There's no faffing about. What I was doing in these drawings is moving along the embankment. Yeah. Very much, unfortunately, very much up by the Ministry of Defence, which the whole project has been a 30-year project of paranoia. If you really get paranoid and persecuted, go and draw by the Ministry of Defence. So when I was saying you learn a lot about yourself, and you can't stand there and do those drawings for 8 hours a day because you can only really draw. For me, I can only draw like that for maybe now. I could probably sustain it for about an hour and a half. I used to do it for 2 hours, have a break, and go back and do another hour. And then all you find is next day you go back. You've got to unpick half of what you've done because, whilst you're worshipping the Protestant work ethic, all you're doing is you're worshipping the Protestant work ethic and you're ruining art or what it is you're trying to excavate, if you like, from this activity.
Because when you said you did drawings, I thought that meant like you just go out and sort of do a little sketch. I didn't think you'd actually do these like absolutely amazing drawings where like every bit of that tree is kind of defined.
Yeah, I mean the drawing is the sort of the platform for the freedom of the painting in a way. So although I know the painting may not look very free, in a way not all the drawings look like this, and I'll show you some in a minute. But I guess I just wanted to pin it down through myself. I wanted to see what I could. I wanted to make the whole thing about pushing myself, and of course it's completely masochistic, etc. But I just wanted to see what I could get out of it.
Because the drawings do have a bit of that Sladey kind of William Goldstreamy vibe, would you say? Yeah. Where they're all sort of because they're just really amazing drawings. Have you exhibited the drawings on their own?
No, well, yes and no, as usual. I just had it's very unusual for me to be able to say this. I just had a 2-person show. You wouldn't look at my CV and see a CV that's, littered with glittering exhibitions, etc. Certainly not. But Gethin Evans, who I worked with at Byam Shaw and ran the foundation year at Royal Drawing School with until 2 weeks ago. Okay. We just had a show at the Royal Drawing School, and I had some of these sketchbooks out there. But no, and people aren't really that interested. Really? It's that's how it is. The people that are interested. I might be showing you the same drawing here every time. Sorry, they might all be different quality scans.
Oh man, look at that. So kind of weird. So do you feel that's weird? So you feel people are not interested in quality drawings?
I suppose I don't really know. I mean, it's nice that I've had a couple of people, look at them and infuse in the way that you are, and it's very lovely. It's very reassuring But they do tend to be people that have, they've grown up with a dialogue about drawing and looking. They're people that, have been very interested in art education from a certain perspective. But so I'm interested in slowness.
It's actually really interesting because you've unintentionally put the irony is you made these beautiful drawings, but because you've put the text in with the notes. It's obvious you've almost never made them to be seen in a way.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I mean,
I've made them in an assumption they wouldn't be seen.
Yeah, and they're purely made for you, but they're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. No. I mean, all I'm trying to do is out of very bare minimal means, bit of paper and a pencil. I'm just trying to, as I say, forge something out of what's there using measurements and looking at how things change as you walk through them, looking at them in a very frontal way.
How do you practically measure it? Are you literally just sort of like...
I find one thing. Yeah. I find one thing to measure with, and I don't think I measure like the slave people do, because whenever I've seen the way they might construct a figure or something, it's not necessarily the way I approach it. I'm sort of more inclined to look at and almost see the act of looking as being about transferring what's in front of you to the page.
Okay.
So maybe they would say that's what they did. I don't know, but I'm sort of quite interested in dividing it into almost into squares, but it's just to find consistency between things. And I've gone down a lot of blind alleys to find a way that enables me to draw what I want to draw. What I'll do now is I'll
it's intriguing because obviously William Coldstream and those paintings, but because when I was reading about him, people often think that he's literally trying to just draw it perfectly. But then if you read a bit more, he says he's playing games with the shapes, and he's playing games like little mathematical games of how they relate to each other, the different bits of the body. So they're not actually as perfect as you might think. It's more he's striving for some other form of perfection or interest within it.
I totally get why people pull their hair out when they think about the old slave. And I totally get why that had to change. But the slave, as was, so if you think about people like you and Newglass, I think he's an amazing artist.
Stunning, yeah.
I don't think all the people that try and paint like you and Newglass are. But then I don't think all the people that try to paint like so were either. All the people that tried to make paintings like Max Beckman were. The trouble is with the slave, it had a real stranglehold on a certain way of educating people.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely vital that, as we were saying earlier, that's been held to account. And that, people, youngsters in particular, they live in a far more complex, very stimulating, but that's, I don't know if that's right or not. They live in such a different environment now.
Yeah.
But, I think painting is meeting the challenges of now really well.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of really exciting young painters around. Obviously, I'm very much a foundation teacher, and I see what foundation students are capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's so exciting. I just hope by the time they get pumped out of the sort of the arse end of the MA experience, they're not ruined and just abused of their innocence.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. it's a weird thing. There's this point where you've kind of there's good things out of that Slady kind of Coldstream you and New Globe thing that almost are just completely lost now, aren't they? It's like there's no balance between it.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of making people slow down and look.
Yeah, well,
you teach youngsters that all the only drawing experience they've had is drawing from a photograph.
Yeah,
and then you confront them with whether it's a model or not, but if you present them with something that's three-dimensional, and you show them something that might, be sighted in say a 60-foot by 30-foot space, and then you tell them they've got to try and draw that on a piece of A2. It's like, when you're talking about William Coldstream and playing games, mathematical games, it can be intuition. It can be quite an intuitive approach to math.
Yeah.
But it's still, God, it really, really confuses them. They find it very hard. And for all you know, I could be telling you a load of crap there. All you need to do is just need to go and talk to them. And, first day on foundation, wherever I talk, first day on foundation, in there with the life model, doing some side drawing, and then they come out like they've had the most cathartic experience of their lives.
I bet.
It's brilliant. I mean, I'm not going to be doing it anymore, but that's why I really believe in the power of art and the power of painting, and whether that's in a political sense or a personal sense, that's your own choice. So I was going to show you some of the sketchbooks. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah. Go on. That'd be lovely.
Right. I'll be a couple of minutes going into my plan sheet and my fellow cabinet. I won't do it anymore. Well, funnily enough, as they sort of come back from the exhibition at the drawing store, and I won't go. We'll be here forever if I try and unpack a lot of them. But at the moment, this book was just the third sketchbook that I was working in. So, I don't know if you're going to really be able to see very much. But
no, that's it. Yeah, hold it up a little bit higher.
So I'm working from this drawing at the moment, and so when I first started doing these drawings, and I was trying to find a way of.
If you hold them a little bit further back, a bit closer to you, a bit. Yeah, that's.
Is that okay? Can you do that all right?
Yeah.
So this is sort of round by. Yeah, this is round by Savoy Hill.
Okay.
Savoy Hill. The reason it's got all this tissue paper in between it is that I thought I wasn't going to be looking at it anymore.
Okay.
And so, there's other drawings that I'd much rather show you actually from this period. But
don't worry.
I'll stick you on a whiz through there anyway. I'm not sure what you're looking at. But
it's fascinating.
First of all, they were. First of all, they were much more sort of physical. Because that's made me feel. That made me feel like I could connect with things.
Okay.
And again, I sort of keep believing on about it, but it's important. I felt such a disconnect with everything after the Royal College.
Yeah. You're always trying to find that way back into the. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I don't think these are any. What way to say? So that there's something and nothing, but I mean, but really, what's most important is I see if I can find something that's a bit more interesting at the front. It's just about. It sort of doesn't matter whether a drawing's good, whatever a good drawing is supposed to be. All those sorts of terms and phrases. It's just
gibberish,
to do with finding their own way of
That's really
finding
cool.
their own way through problems.
Oh yeah, that's a
And
good description of it, actually.
it's a shame actually because there are better things that I could show you.
Oh, don't worry.
And I never think of getting the books out, to be honest.
Really? It's
Yeah.
like,
Effin always says to me, "You never show the drawings."
but the drawings
So,
are like, because they're like the ongoing little stamp of the work throughout the time, aren't they?
yeah, they are, and that's why all that again. That's all about sort of chaos of walking around and
Oh,
just
nice.
trying to make sense of where you are. And
They're really wild, some of these.
yeah, someone else said that, and I and I did like that actually. I did like them being quite wild.
Yeah.
But then I became very conscious that would that become an affectation? Would that just become? It's a shame that we all get. The more educated you are, the more self-conscious you become, the more limited you become in a way. I'll see if I can find a couple of drawings in here. So again, this drawing, I have a replay print made of this. But by then, I was.
That is so cool. That is really good.
God knows how long that took.
Exactly. That's what I keep thinking. The drawings must have taken. I mean, the paintings take a long time. But the drawings, like I said, I thought you were out there with a sketchbook going scribble, scribble, scribble. I didn't think they were actually like,
No,
I'm going to be there.
To be honest, the painting's taken such a long time because there will be months and months and months
of drawing
spent outside drawing.
Such a cool drawing.
So I would do a sort of a whole period of drawing, and nobody's ever seen these drawings actually.
Really? Look at it. I mean,
so I don't have this on show.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they're really, really amazing drawings.
Thank you. I mean, they're very tough to do.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of that thing, going back to my friend's dad in his train set, and then someone else that I knew who decorated vases, which was really sort of mind-numbingly detailed passages of shape and colour. I wanted to feel that I was sort of, respecting that. Okay. I didn't want it to be just I'd be at the Royal College and put a couple of shitty old washers down, and then you get a scooter passing by going, leave it like that.
Yeah.
Leave it like that. But I think it's all right to say leave it like that if you then qualify. But they're sort of coming of what, leave it like that, it's great. Or you get some other student come up, you really shouldn't touch that. But why? And then you think, okay, well maybe if that's one piece of work out of many others, maybe it's okay to leave it like that. But what am I going to do 100 canvases a week just because every time you put a bit of paint down, someone comes by and says, leave it like that. That's ridiculous.
It's funny actually. A friend of mine did a painting of it was a guy dropping this glass, and it was quite a big painting, and he'd done the basic sketch, and the glass was dropping from the hand, and he'd put a sort of wash of blue in the background, and he'd drawn the figure. This was at City and Guilds actually, and they said leave it like that. It's more contemporary. It's more contemporary, they said, because he wanted to sort of Rembrandt it up with all these layers of paint and stuff, and it really, really bugged him because he was bothered about it for ages because he wanted to finish it. And now I think he should have actually just done another one where he had finished it how he wanted, and you'd have had the two. But it was a weird thing. It threw him quite heavily.
So I am very moralising about these things. I know it irritates people immensely, but don't be a tutor in an art college if all you want to do is turn up and get the money and go around telling your mates to teach in an art college. It's a really responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, we all carry these, even if it's a misinterpreted slight, we carry those things with us for decades. It's not like stuck in the shelf in a supermarket and someone tells you you're not quick enough, so you get sacked, or you need to put that tin over there to the left rather than the right. It's like, it means a lot to people, and if you can't actually find the wherewithal to provide criticism constructively, then don't do it, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, the painting behind me, which you can see, it's got these black and white shapes on. I had an interview. I had an interview at Goldsmiths for an MA, and I took some of these paintings. Which the fact I took paintings disturbed them quite heavily as it was. But then, and they were a bit like, why have you brought these? You put an installation, and I thought, well, the paintings are installation. I thought I'd bring the paintings from the installation. I think they were just like, they were a bit like, why don't you just come with a laptop? And I was like, well, I thought I'd bring the paint. Anyway, doesn't matter. But anyway, I showed them these pictures, and they said, oh, those black and white shapes, you've just found a way to finish your painting, haven't you? And that was 20 years ago. It still bothers me what they said.
Yeah.
And I still think, well, are they right? Are they wrong? I mean, you still think about those little tiny things that people have said to you.
Yeah. And, students, no matter how old you are, if you're in an interview situation, you've got to be quite ballsy to say, well, what do you mean? I don't understand. You're quite vulnerable.
Totally.
I don't like this cult of character assassination, and women do it as well as men. They testosterone up and confuse teaching with bullying because it makes you feel good. And you see it with young kids going off for their BA interviews, and they come back and you think, hang on, they've been spoken to like they're being spanked, verbally spanked. They've actually kicked through the nose to have an interview. You pay your enrollment fee or whatever.
Yeah. You're right.
If you're travelling, then they keep them hanging around all day until they can be bothered to see them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's a real abuse of the privilege and the responsibility that comes with teaching, and realising that it's a nurturing thing.
It's funny because City and Guilds obviously has a lot more. City and Guilds and London Art School obviously has a lot more mature students than most of the places, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'd done law beforehand, and one of my friends had been a doctor and stuff. And it was funny because we were laughing that the art world thing was so much more brutal than law or the doctor things. You had a much more sort of friendly, agreeable existence, but the art world was quite hardcore, much more extreme.
Well, watch the old elbows come out. When who's got the sharpest elbows? That's not going to be going to the private use thing. Anyway. But, the other thing I'd show you, and by all means, Robert, I'm saying Robert, it could be Robin, couldn't it, for all I know?
Robert.
It is Robert. I have got some there's not many of them, but I do have some other paintings that I can show you.
I was going to say we should begin to round up soon, but I was also going to say, do you have any paintings? Other ones?
I do.
Because
I have some other little ones.
I'd love
I've
to
got to show the screen again.
Yeah.
So I realised that this big painting was, taking a huge amount of time and focus. Yeah. And I thought, well, one day it will be finished, possibly. Yeah. And I wanted to, because I also have a lot of sketchbooks of figures, and I wanted to I wanted to sort of invigorate my painting practice. I wanted to extend my painting practice by working with a completely different subject, and that's that subject, the figure. Okay. And that's, so these are all done, they all took ages, actually. There's a surprise.
They're not just knocked off quickly.
Pardon?
Not just knocked off quickly in an afternoon.
Yeah. No, because I find it all so difficult. Yeah. So that's very small, It's
20 by 30 centimetres roughly, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever that is in inches, that's what it is.
It's about like...
And the then I was trying to, I just wanted to do some paintings about the figure and people, but through painting. So the surfaces again, it's like years and years and years of paint, and now and again they would have been all right. Now and again, somebody at the Royal College in between 1981 to 84 would have walked past and said, "Leave it like that." I forget that. I didn't want to do that. So this, God knows how many years that painting was on different canvases actually as well.
Oh, what? So even these have taken years?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I wanted to find that moment. I wanted to find that moment where I knew it wasn't just that I couldn't take it anywhere else. It was that it felt right. That it had to feel right. So,
because you know, these ones have got a much more. They've got a weird bathers vibe to it, haven't they?
Have they?
Yeah.
You just made my day, Rob. I don't know if they have. I'm very happy to accept that compliment. This was really early, this one, but it went on for years. Man. But you know, because I just love those tracksuits, those young guys.
They're classic, aren't they?
Yeah, they look so good in them as well.
Yeah.
Don't they know? And this is tiny, this painting, but this was made from a little drawing I did when I was at the Royal College. It was on a scrap of paper, and I mean scrap.
Yeah.
And it was this lady that was up at the Angel that was got a beard, you know, and she was bald with threadbare hair and these terrible, terrible red, lofty legs that you used to see old ladies with a lot in the past. And she always stayed with me. And that really, you know, I suppose painting is my passion, but I really do want to make paintings about the figure, you know, really. But I want to finish this because I want to finish this because it's so hard. And that's why I want to do it, because it's hard. But, you know, I think the most profound paintings and artworks are about the figure. It's a bit of a generalisation, and some clever blogs can no doubt demolish that argument, and they're quite do so. But you know, these are my humble offerings. So these are more recent, because the little ones were really just getting going with working with the figure.
They're really cool. And have you ever exhibited these? Or?
Actually, some of these were at the show at the drawing store.
Oh, they were? Okay, nice one.
Yeah, so this is the last painting. This was a guy called Kieran that worked and still works in the convenience store opposite our house. He lived in East Ham.
Okay.
And he just always used to sit on the railing, you know, sit on the railings, having his bag. And there was something really, really very profound, I found. He was a Ugandan Asian, you know, and you know, who gives a shit about him? You could say, but I give a shit, you know. And if me giving a shit about him puts him in a painting, then that's a small thing, you know, to sort of.
It's interesting. I mean, that shows the value the painting has for you. How to explain it? But I mean, it's like the painting adds extra value to him and you and everything.
Yeah, that's nice. I hope so. Thank you. You know, it's yeah. So there we are. That's it, really. You know.
It's really cool.
I can go whittering on for ages, but that doesn't.
we should probably, I'm absolutely loving it. We should probably round it up.
Yeah, cool. That's fine.
But so I think we've done quite a lot actually.
Yeah, what's oh my God, you must be so bored.
No, of course not. I've absolutely loved it. I found it fascinating. I mean, absolutely fascinating. I'm always amazed by these things. I mean, I had no idea you're going to have those amazing drawings that are built into the picture.
But you know, I don't think I've been quite controlled talking to you today. So I don't, you just chop and change it about as much as you like. That's your bit, isn't it? You do whatever you want.
Yeah, I won't.
But
do much with it.
at least we know we've probably safely sent some people to sleep.
Probably not.
So thank you for inviting me to do this.
Sharon, I've loved it. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Loved it too. Thank you so much.
It's been really good.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing those drawings in an exhibition, basically.
Well, if you're ever down in Devon, come and have a look.
Oh yeah, we'll do actually. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll get them out for you.
Yeah. Okay.
You look after yourself, Rob. Ta-da.
Cheers, Sharon. Bye.
Bumbuckler.